Walt Disney once said that for every laugh there should be a tear, which is why I think, anyway, he would have loved Drawn to Life, that hugely entertaining, surprising, and emotional spectacle, which is now being presented live on stage at Disney Springs in Lake Buena Vista, Florida. Presented by Cirque du Soleil and Disney, this is a show that I can guarantee you will captivate audiences of all ages. Drawn to Life is a must-see, family-friendly spectacle that will leave you, well, in awe. So don't miss out on your chance to be part of the magic. Plan your visit to Disney Springs today and reserve your seats for Drawn to Life by Cirque du Soleil and Disney live on stage. Set your imagination in motion.
Welcome back to another edition of the Disney Dish Podcast with Jim Hill. It's me, Len Testa, and this is our show for the week of Schmurz Day, May 27th, 2024. On the show today, news, listener questions, and I see the new Dreams That Soar drone show. Then in our main segment, Jim finishes the history of Disney's miniature golf courses. Let's get started by bringing in the man who says that his procrastination will not be a problem. Just you wait and see. It's Mr. Jim Hill. Jim, how's it going?
Oh, Len, that strikes a little too close to home. I used to have terrible writer's block. Back then, my personal work philosophy was never put off today what you can easily put off till a week from tomorrow. Eventually learned how to get out of my own way, and now I kind of have a different problem with all the podcasts and Disney Impact. I'm basically writing 24/7. I mean, for example,
you're a content machine these days, yeah.
Well, yeah. For example, the feature we're doing today, I wrote between 9 and 7 this morning, or excuse me, 7 and 9 this morning. Then once we're done, I have to go off and write a picture of this for Jim Schul and Lauren that I will be recording at 4, and then his bride, Katie, head off to Palm Springs. Drew and I have to do a fine-tuning. So 3 shows, 1 day. And, what's kind of interesting, Len, is I've gone from having terrible writer's block to just being a terrible writer. As anyone who listens to the show and knows about all the likes and the ums and the knows and literally as I put into the show. But at least now I'm a prolific terrible writer.
That's the thing. It's one thing to be a bad writer. It's another thing to be prolific at it.
There we go. I'm kind of the Dean Koontz of Disney. So it's like
I was going to pick another author, but say the same thing. It was like, it might not be great, but look how much of it there is.
There we go. Quantity, not quality, baby. So, yes. All right. Anyway.
What's the saying? Quantity has a quality all its own?
Well, there we go. And you should stand upwind is what they're saying. Okay.
All right, Jim, let's do a quick thanks to our subscribers. Thanks to everyone who subscribes to the show over at patreon.com/JimHillMedia, including Mitch, Andy Reese, EM, Alicia Von Kugligan, Bob Pfeiffer, and Tim Gannon. Jim, these are the Disney Vacation Club cast members who've come up with the next great marketing idea, putting model DVC rooms on the walkways to the food halls at Disney's value resorts. So as you walk to your 7 a.m. breakfast after your third sleepless night crammed into 260 square feet with your snoring in-laws, Alicia's pitch is going to be, sign here and we'll have you in a 2-bedroom by lunch. True story.
That's genius. Wow.
Okay, Laurel wrote that opening for me after we stayed at Copper Creek. Like, she was like, why don't they have models of these at Pop Century? I'm like, I don't know, but that's the greatest idea I've ever heard in my entire life. I'm using this for the show.
That's brilliant and aspirational.
Can you imagine? I mean, you just put them on there. Oh yeah, we're just we're redecorating a few rooms. Thought we'd throw these in here. You like? People would be trying to break into those rooms.
What are the point? You'd have to chase them out of the bed. It's like, please, just another 20 minutes. All right.
I just need 30 minutes here, and everything's gonna be fine. All right. On to the news, folks. The news is sponsored by TouringPlans.com. Touring Plans helps you save time and money at theme parks like Walt Disney World. Check us out at TouringPlans.com. All right, Jim. So this past Tuesday, I woke up at 3 o'clock in the morning to get ready for the new Dreams That Soar drone show at Disney Springs. And I put a video link to the show in the show notes, taken by our good friend Steve over at WDWMagic.com. So the cast member preview was at Disney Springs, started at 5:30. On Tuesday, May 21st, and it went off on time. Fun fact where I was standing. So I got a room at Saratoga Springs so I could watch over the water, and that worked out perfectly. Saratoga Springs is where you want to be for the show. By the way, thanks to our listener, Asim, who said that if I needed an excuse for security to be out at Saratoga Springs at 5:30 a.m., I should just say that I was there for my Tai Chi class, and it was part of my cultural heritage. I'm not sure when I'm going to use that line, Asim, but rest assured, I will use that line.
Wow. Okay, so the show, what did we think?
So just under 10 minutes, 800 drones. The drones are launched over by Cirque du Soleil. The focal point of the show is going to be right between the back of Haleo and the back of Summer House on the Lake. So if you guys want to get dinner reservations for those and sit in the back, that's where it's at. It's basically, Jim, a flying 3D light bright toy. And I say that in the absolute best way possible, right? Tons of colored dots making shapes. So the theme of soaring opens the show. We start with Big Ben, the clock tower, and it turns into Peter Pan flying, and then Dumbo, and then Carl's house from up. So a lot of like flying themes to start. And the interesting thing for me is that the drones aren't forming static images. Like Dumbo moves across the sky as his ears flap. And so these are essentially flying, but slow animations. And there's Big Hero 6, there's Buzz Lightyear, Baby Yoda, Mandalorian. Basically, we're plugging everything on Disney Plus, sure. But I think the most impressive scene for me was probably the Death Star. Have you seen video of this?
I have. What's interesting again is the bits of dialogue they pulled from the actual New Hope. I mean, but anyway, go on and describe.
So the Death Star spins slowly in the sky, and some drones are colored differently, and they're actually they light up in sequence to make it look like laser blasts during the attack on the Death Star. And then eventually the Death Star explodes and the drones light up like, bursts of fireworks. And the thing that I was thinking about for that is, like, you can't have fireworks and drones together, like in the same physical space. But Jim, imagine you position the drones and the fireworks as they are in the Magic Kingdom. Like, remember in the Magic Kingdom, all of the fireworks aren't on the same, one-dimensional plane, right? Some of the fireworks are back, some of them are forward, some of them are higher, some of them are lower. And if you think about it, it's really like Disney's multi-plane camera in terms of effect, right? So what if you added the drones in the front of that and used the fireworks as a background like a multi-plane camera? Think about the things you could do with that.
Well, it's worth noting. I mean, for example, the Electric Sky Parade that's now playing over at Disneyland Paris. There's a couple of moments in that show where drones do not pyro, but smoke and light effects. Like, you see the cannon on Captain Hook's ship, suddenly appear to give a blast or that sort of thing. So, again, depending on the drone technology you're doing, pyro or pyro equivalent effects are possible. But again, this is definitely one of those walk before you can run situations.
Oh yeah, 100%. Yeah, yeah. It's definitely a walk before you run. The other impressive scene was they had silhouettes of people dancing in front of a rainbow colored curtain, and the curtain was made up of lights from the drones. And you actually forget that it's drones doing that. It just looks like a TV scene. It really, really impressive there. And then, compared to the last drone show at Disney Springs, which I think was almost 10 years ago now?
November 2016 to January 2017. So yeah.
Okay, so eight years ago. All right. Mm-hmm. But you can definitely see how the technology has improved since then. They have 60% more drones. The drones are faster and they're more quiet. So definitely an impressive show. And I think it's worth a special trip to Disney Springs just to see it. It runs through September 2nd. There are 2 shows nightly at 9 p.m. and 10:45 p.m. I think, like everything, the second show is going to be less crowded. Disney's actually saying that there's going to be a line to join for the Disney Springs viewing areas, which are back behind those 2 restaurants. I imagine that's going to be crowded for the first few shows, and then it should calm down after that. Jim, did you hear that for Friday's premiere of this, they're actually opening the queue at 8 a.m. for a 9 p.m. show?
Oh, okay. Wow. All right. Shade? Do they have shade for these people?
Yeah, I'm hoping. Yeah, that's a lot.
Nothing says I'm enjoying my nighttime show like Sunstroke.
I think Salt and Straw is going to get a lot of business from this. Like, okay. Ice cream. Anyone want ice cream? That'd be fantastic. Mm-hmm. So if you're over at Saratoga Springs, the absolute best viewing spots are directly behind the Congress Park pool. In fact, they've got chairs benches that you can sit at. It's fantastic views, completely unobstructed. You're right on the water. Not only that, but there are bathrooms and vending machines nearby. If you're staying in Saratoga Springs and in Congress Park, you want buildings 3 and 4. Those have, especially the ones on the upper floors, have direct unobstructed views of this, and you don't even have to leave your room to see the adventure. You won't hear the audio, but if you're actually outside, there's enough bleed from Disney Springs that you have absolutely no trouble making out everything that's there. Actually, I wouldn't be surprised if the show continues if Disney actually charges more for those specific hotel rooms. I know they're back into the process of trying to simplify their resort room categories. I just think it's irresistible.
No, you're not wrong. I mean, think about how much more they charge for Bay Lake Tower and,
Right.
the Contemporary for those facing the kingdom and, for that view and the fireworks. So
Really well done. Congratulations to the team that put it out there. Everything went out without a hitch. It looked really, really good. So congratulations there.
one note, though, about, we were just talking about the first drone show that was done at Disney Springs. And, that was done out ahead of the holidays, starting in late November, ended in early January. The, I want to say, Starbright Holidays, with its 300 drone show. And what was interesting to me is that one had 2 shows as well, but it was 7 and 8:30, whereas this one, it's 9 and 10:45, and more to the point, it's over on the west side. That's the viewing spot. And I'm kind of intrigued by the later start time and, more to the point, the viewing area.
How much do you think the that seasonality has to do with the viewing times? Because if they did the drone show in December, it gets dark at 3:00. But now we're in June. Basically, we're coming up on the equinox, where it's not going to get dark until like 8:55 p.m.
Okay, no, that is an interesting point. I will say this much. In fact, I think when we were pre-gaming, you were talking about someone who was initially trying to view the show from the gas station on the other side of Buena Vista. And
Yeah.
I have to admit, I'm going to be intrigued, our first week, or thereabouts, to hear about what happens out on Buena Vista Drive during the 10 minutes that the show is going on. Yeah, how many... how many people who are driving by, oh, look at the cool smash.
Drone! The Disney buses are going to have cow catchers on them, and they're just going to push the accidents to the side of the road.
Okay, there we go.
Jim, the other bit of news I want to point out here is that Rock and Roller Coaster, designed by our good friend Jim Scholl, has a reopening date now, and that is July 27th, 2024. So this is what, then, a 6-month refurb?
Yeah. So just nice to have it back in the inventory at Disney Hollywood Studios, because just frankly, that park needs the capacity.
Yeah, it definitely needs the capacity. Although I would expect some other operational changes to happen as soon as Rock and Roller Coaster comes back online. So I think there's a small shoe to drop that this has to happen first, and then we'll go from there. All right, on to surveys. Jim, I got a survey after my last week stay at Copper Creek, and there are a couple of questions that I thought were interesting and I wanted your opinion on. Here's one of them. Which of these would you say is the main reason why you didn't purchase any merchandise while shopping at Epcot? And the 3 choices are: the selection wasn't great, I couldn't find what I was looking for, and 3, I didn't want to carry my purchase during the day.
Wow. First and foremost, you got this question out of the blue, as in, hey, we noticed you didn't buy anything.
It was the standard survey, and there was a question like, did you do any shopping?
Oh,
and I was like, yeah, I shopped, and then the next question was, did you buy anything? And if not, why not? Yeah.
Okay.
But I thought this one was interesting because we just had a series of listener emails asking why Disney hasn't brought back in-park or in-room package delivery services. So that third option, I didn't want to carry my purchases during the day, it seems like Disney might also be interested in this topic now.
There we go. And I think, as you pointed out repeatedly, Disney never writes a survey unless they're looking for a specific answer. So that third question kind of sings, doesn't it, Len?
Yeah, well, I mean, in this one, if they get a high enough percentage of people saying, I didn't want to carry my purchases during the day, right? Then you start to look at what's the average purchase cost? How much would it cost to have cast members driving stuff or, bringing stuff to the front of the park or to the resorts? And then it's just a simple cost-benefit calculation, right? Speaking of shops, I also got this question after I had said that I rode Guardians of the Galaxy. And the question is this. Did you shop at any of the following locations during your visit to Epcot? But Jim, only 2 locations are listed. One of them is the Creation Shop, and the other one is Treasures of Xandar.
And, what's interesting about those two? I mean, face it, you cannot miss the Creation Shop.
Yeah, you can't. You're going exactly where I wanted you to go with this question. Go ahead.
Yeah, I mean, you can't. You absolutely can't. Whether you're coming from
multicolored Indian. Yeah, you can be blind and deaf and still find the Creation Shop. Yeah.
There we go. Whereas Treasures of Xandar, because of the way that the entrance to Guardians of the Galaxy Cosmic Rewind is situated, what they're discovering is a lot of people by accident walk by the Treasures of Xandar.
Right by it. And that's what I did too. When I was exiting Guardians, I was, by the way, quick tip, I sat in the very back for the first time, and it is remarkably less nauseating in the back. So ask to sit in the back if you want to do it. Yeah, but I was walking out, I was thinking, my God, I feel pretty good. And the next thing I thought was, where's this gift shop again? Because I don't remember it. And it turns out you actually have to leave the building. And if you walk straight, you're going back to the center of Epcot. You actually have to make a right as if you're going back into the line to find the Treasures of Xandar. And I was like, that's bizarre placement for that entrance. It's almost like designed like not to be recognized.
Yeah, and long story short, evidently, you'll see a bunch of surveys like this over the next year or so because they have to. I mean, remember, Epcot was about to be buttoned up. Communicore Hall was done, and that yes, looming in the distance at some point, at some far off time, we're going to get a Journey into Imagination revisited, but. You have to, at some point, find the money to reconfigure the entrance to this, whether it's a new marquee or, a step out or something that catches people's attention. Because evidently, from what I'm hearing, the people love the ride, but the merch is just not moving.
I mean, it's very hard to find, yeah. And even I think the sign is actually on the inside of like a smoked glass window. I'm trying to remember it now. But even the sign is not apparent. But Jim, here's my idea, right? So if it doesn't work as merch, and just hear me out here because you know how much Disney is into food and bev sales at Epcot, what if they turn it into the Xandar Speakeasy, where it's hard to find on purpose, and that will just make people want to go more?
I actually, in an Oca's Cantina kind of way, that's verges on brilliant, Len.
There's an entire section of the menu that is simply titled "I Am Groot," and every drink has a different description, but they're all named the "I Am Groot." And you just have to describe what you want along with the name. I think that's the way to do this.
Okay, and again, just want to remind...
And who had the I Am Groot? Okay, and who had the I Am Groot?
There we go.
And I think you had the I Am Groot. I mean, the gag writes itself, Jim.
It does. And more to the point, that someone in Disney management write the check to Len Testa, because that's a brilliant idea.
You can hear the type. You can hear the keyboard burning up right now.
That's right. Oh my God! Please look at this proposal.
And speaking of comments from the general public, let's do listener emails. This one's from Mike Ralph, who says, first off, a very sincere thank you for all you guys do. I'm on the road a lot for work, and the Jim Hill Media Network has filled a not insignificant amount of airtime between stops. There you go, Jim. There's your prolificness there.
There we go, right there.
In 2020, we took our family to Walt Disney World. Back then, COVID was the party crusher for anything travel-related. However, one of the highlights of the trip was a couple of hours spent fishing with my then 14-year-old daughter. We had a guided trip at Caribbean Beach, which was the best money and time we ever spent when factoring in Disney and teenagers. The captain was an older gentleman and had been with the company for a decade after retirement. The NBA had just wrapped up his short season in Florida, and he had a lot of stories of players as well as facts and figures about the resort. One statistic he shared was that the fishing department had 8 boats and 12 other captains that did all of the excursions, which is no small investment. But, he said, one single popcorn stand at the end of Main Street in the Magic Kingdom was more profitable to the company than the entire fishing department. Have you ever heard this? And does it add up? Or is this just another tall fishing tale? I love this question, right? All right, so the price of a 2-hour fishing excursion is around $300, excluding gratuity. A box of popcorn without the souvenir bucket costs around $6 with tax, so it takes around 50 boxes of popcorn to equal one fishing trip. So my guess is that the fishing department does a handful of excursions per day. I actually checked on this when I was at Copper Creek last week, and they are not busy at all. So I would be surprised if they did like 6 excursions per day. But let's say that they average between 6 and 7, and they gross around $2,000 a day. That's the same as 400 boxes of popcorn. And so let's say that the popcorn cart is open for 10 hours per day. It would need to sell around $200 per hour in food, which works out to less than 1 bottle of water per minute. So yeah, I think Jim, it absolutely makes sense that one popcorn cart at the end of Main Street brings in more revenue than the entire fishing department. And we should be happy that the fishing department hasn't been replaced with an automated boat skippered by the animatronic Captain Ahab. That's all I'm saying.
Okay. And just to throw an additional factoid on at the end here, since it's been about a decade, maybe 15 years, that Disney has begun to lean into the collectible popcorn buckets. And that program now, I mean, anybody who's been to Epcot for the Festival of the Arts and seen the ridiculous line for the Figment buckets or the Imagination Pavilion buckets, I was flat out told by somebody at Disney that, between the construction costs and what it costs to ship those things over to the state in bulk, it's basically $1.50 a unit, Len, and those things are going for anywhere from $25 to $30 a piece. So, and then when you figure that your average thing of popcorn, the paper sleeve costs 3 cents, the oil and the popcorn kernels cost a nickel. The profit margins on this thing are insane.
Yeah, the profit margin's got to be 90% easy.
Yeah.
Yeah, because labor can't be that much. Yeah, I know Disney's general rule for food is that the ingredients in the labor cannot cost more than 25% of the retail cost of the item. So that tells you, and some of that has to go to infrastructure, paying for the building itself, the maintenance, the upkeep, and stuff like that. But still, that's a pretty decent ROI on corn, right? Yeah. So good question. All right, here's one from Allie, who says, "I'm a dedicated Disney Unpacked fan. My question is not directly related to Disney. In the back of you, Len, on the Unpacked episodes is a small but lovely bar, complete with a glass of stirrers. I'm sure you know what's in frame during these videos. Is there anything cool about these stirrers or the bar in general that you might share? I keep getting distracted by it. I'm super excited by the Patreon expansion. I cannot tell you the joy that all of these videos bring to my life. Thank you for all of your great experiences and most of all, fun." Yeah, so thank you, Allie. Yeah, so the glass of stirrers is from my mother-in-law's personal collection from the 1960s, including classic Las Vegas casinos, Palm Springs tiki bars, and lots more. My in-laws had wonderful, wonderful stories of socializing in the 1960s. I found in their scrapbooks a photo of my mother-in-law and Jackie Onassis at a NASA event.
Oh,
with the invitation. And I'm like, I need to hear this story. And she's like, "Oh yeah, that's the one where we met some pilots, I guess in the early 90s, and we flew out to Vegas that night." I'm like, "You flew from Washington D.C. to Las Vegas with men you met at a party in the 1960s?" And she looked at me like, "There is no way I'm telling the rest of this story to you, my son-in-law." And I'm like, Irene, just kept going. I'm like, she's like, "Yeah, we landed. It was pretty early in the morning, but we got a nice hotel room and we had a great breakfast. And then, we flew back." I'm like, "You're leaving some details out here, Irene." My in-laws were the best, man. They were. I like both of them. They were great people. Yeah, great story. But anyway, that's where I'm from. They are antique from the 1960s drink stirrers. Yeah, and I love all of them.
That is so cool. Wow. Okay.
All right. We got several emails from Scott, from Marissa, and from a bunch of others about this. So I'm going to consolidate it all into one. And it says this. On May 18th, Jenny Nicholson posted a YouTube video about her trip on the Starcruiser and its eventual closure. She describes Disney's use of the, quote, Spirit Airlines, quote, pay for expected benefits model, and explains how the technology and storytelling did not work for her trip. Jenny ends the video with a criticism of Disney's bent towards upcharges and locking new magic behind large paywalls. It's a 4-hour-long video, and it's been viewed well over 1 million times in less than 2 days. And Jim, I note here that we're up to 3.5 million viewings as of this morning. So the question is this. How aware is Disney of content like Jenny's? Is it discussed? Do they respond either directly or indirectly to the criticisms? Even with potentially tens of millions of views, does a video like Jenny's have any real impact on the company? All right. So I skimmed through the video. It's 4 hours. I skimmed through it as best I could. It's really detailed. It's really well done. Great video. A lot of Jenny's criticism is perfectly valid. I think, Jim, Disney's absolutely aware of stuff like this. Like, I'm sure by now, various executives at Disney have had their interns watch all 4 hours and edit down the salient points into a PowerPoint deck. Like, I'm 100% sure that's happened. But what do you think about this?
Well, I mean, look, Jenny has clearly earned a seat at the table. She's been doing these sorts of things for YouTube since 2016, and I mean, she's weighed in on topics like the Avengers, My Little Pony, Star Wars. So again, when the Intergalactic Starcruiser came along, she was on board. I mean, she was enthusing about this thing before it ever, came to be. And so that's what comes through loud and clear with this. And again, I think it says a lot
about... She really wanted it to work, yeah.
I mean, she was in their corner. And the fact that the stuff she cites about, how, she was trying to engage the cast members who actually, in a weird sort of way, made her kind of feel ashamed that she was working as hard to connect with them. And so she backed off. And I think it speaks volumes about her unique place she occupies. The fact, again, it took her months to pull this together. The Galactic Starcruiser has been closed for what, almost 18 months at this point, or
it probably took a year to put together a 4-hour video, because it's not just her talking on a screen. She's got video examples, she's got quotes, and she's got a good rule of thumb for us, like when we're doing the Impact videos, is every hour of video is 10 hours of editing. So there's at least 40 hours of editing here, but an ungodly amount of writing to get to that point where you can record it too. So she's probably spent months on this, yeah.
Yeah. So I don't know. I mean, and again, it says a lot that this many people have watched this 4-hour-long video, and I think on Disney's side of the fence, the whole notion that, I mean, this underlines, circles, and indents something that you and I have said a lot on the show, Len, that the narrative out there that Disney is too expensive, or, what she's talking about, this magical thing that's hidden behind a paywall, I mean, that's got to concern folks at Disney. I mean, of course, the irony of all this is you and I have both been hearing that, the company is looking for ways to bring the Intergalactic Starcruiser back, but in a different form. And, gonna be interesting to see when they do this, how they frame that. Especially with this 4-hour presentation hanging out there.
Yeah, I'm sure they've watched some of them have watched the videos. I thought one of the most effective criticisms was part 20, which is titled "Robbed," where Jenny uses Disney's own videos of their executives explaining how Galaxy's Edge was going to work back when the land was announced, and then pointing out everything that we either never got that was promised, or the stuff that was moved from the park, where you pay $150 to get in, to a $5,000 hotel. And I'll say this, like, all of the anger and all of the responsibility for the failure rests with executives like Bob Chapek, who could have spent the money on building the things they said they would build. And it's not on Imagineering or the performers or the hotel staff who did the best they could with what they got, right? I went back and looked at this. So in the last 10 years, Disney's bought back almost $30 billion of its own stock. And the best way to think of a stock buyback is that it's like the executive saying, we don't have any ideas that if we built them would make us more money than doing this, right? So they're out of ideas, right? So that's $3 billion a year, which has basically been Disney's parks, experiences, and resorts capital investments over that time frame too. So a tiny, tiny fraction of that $3 billion a year that went to stock buybacks could have solved all of the problems that Jenny mentioned. And I think the thing we all have to remember is this. At some fairly low level, executives stop hearing from guests on a day-to-day basis. And then the only thing they hear from is Wall Street and spreadsheets. And so those are the things they focus on. I think that's what the problem is. By the way, Jim, have we ever told the Bob Chapek Magic Band story?
We have not. Are we allowed yet to tell that?
Well, he's gone, and the other executive that was there is gone. Let's think about that for a week, and we might say it.
Okay. And just one final note before we go here. I just want to stress that, and again, I understand that Walt Disney has been gone since December of 1966, but you mentioned the executives who stopped listening to guests on a day-to-day basis. And back then, you were an Imagineer driving down from Glendale to work at the park. Walt wouldn't let you park backstage.
Go park at the parking lot, take the train. I mean, how many photos do we have of Walt in the parks? And that was when cameras were rare. How many photos do we have of Bob Chapek in the parks, actually listening to guests or counting off the number of paces between garbage cans and stuff like that? It's just it's a different mindset.
Totally. And the sad part of it is that the executives who are running the company now don't seem to be aware of that disconnect and don't seem to be aware of the conversations that people are having when they come home from their Disney World, or vacation, which is, we had a wonderful time, but.
Yeah. All right. Last email is from Julie, who says, picture this. Listening to this week's Disney Dish while preparing dinner, and the child is at a table coding or hacking. I don't really know. I'm not that skilled as a parent. All of a sudden, Len starts with the SSSSAAA, and without hesitation, the child begins to sing along to Safety Dance with gusto. The child, who was unaware of a literal earthquake while deeply engrossed in coding a few weeks ago, heard Len and joined him in the celebration of Men Without Hats. He then proceeded to belt out 8675309 upon mention of Tommy Two-Tone. Thank you for one of the greatest parent-child bonding moments ever, as I then introduced him to Pop Goes the World. I only wish my non-nerd husband had been here to share. Your podcast is the absolute best. Jim, it's every once in a while my obscure knowledge of 1980s pop music comes in handy. I'm just saying.
Oh, that is a great story. Thank you, Julie. Wow.
Somewhere Richard Blade is smiling. Anyway, all right.
There we go.
We're going to take a quick commercial break. When we come back, Jim finishes up the history of Disney's mini golf courses. We'll be right back.
It's that time of year when we all like to get away for a little while. Maybe spend the day at the beach or visit your local theme park. Of course, if you're planning a quick trip like that, it's always nice to have a few coins in your pocket, which is sometimes tough to do, especially if much of your disposable income is already going to subscriptions that you're either no longer using or have just plain forgotten about. And if that's something that's been troubling you lately, thinking about how much you're actually paying out each month when it comes to subscriptions, and spoiler alert, it's probably a lot more than you think, well, that's why you should probably give Rocket Money a try. Rocket Money is the personal finance app that finds and cancels your unwanted subscriptions, monitors your spending, and helps you lower your bills so that you can then grow your savings. With Rocket Money, I now have full control over my subscriptions and a clear view of what my expenses are. I can see all of my subscriptions in one place, and if I see something I don't want, Rocket Money can help me cancel it with just a few taps. Better yet, thanks to Rocket Money's dashboard feature, I can see how last month's spending compares to this month's spending, which then gives me a better understanding of my overall spending habits. Note to self, I am spending way too much money on those Marvel Studios art books. Plus, Rocket Money can help me create a custom budget, which will then aid me when it comes to keeping my spending on track. See that earlier note about those Marvel Studios art books. Look, managing your money can be a challenge, but you don't have to do it alone. Rocket Money empowers you to save more, spend less, see everything, and take back control of your financial life. Which is why Rocket Money has over 5 million users and has saved them a total of $500 million in canceled subscriptions, saving members up to $740 a year when they use all of this personal finance app's features. So stop wasting your money on things you don't use. Cancel your unwanted subscriptions by going to rocketmoney.com/DisneyDish. That's rocketmoney.com/DisneyDish. One more time for those people who were already out in the driveway packing the car for that long overdue trip to the beach. rocketmoney.com/DisneyDish. We thank them for sponsoring today's show. You know what they say about breakfast, right? That it's the most important meal of the day. But the real key takeaway when it comes to that particular piece of dietary advice is, well, you should always start your day off by trying to give your body the fuel that it actually needs. We're talking proteins, people, not empty calories like sugar. Which is why these days I try to start every morning with a big bowl of Magic Spoon. And why is that? Well, the folks at Magic Spoon have done something incredible. They've taken all of those breakfast cereals that we used to love as kids and found a way to replicate those flavors. Only each serving of Magic Spoon contains 0 grams of sugar, 13 to 14 grams of protein, and just 4 to 5 grams of net carbs per serving. And did I mention that Magic Spoon is high protein, gluten-free, grain-free, and soy-free, plus it's only 140 calories a serving. By the way, now that Magic Spoon is doing chewy, delicious treats, it's not just a breakfast thing anymore. These are just like those marshmallow treats that we used to have as kids, only these have 1 gram of sugar and 2 grams of net carbs. Magic Spoon treats come in 4 flavors: marshmallow, chocolatey peanut butter, blueberry muffin, and double chocolate, and they're packed with 11 to 12 grams of protein per bar. I've been using these Magic Spoon treats as an afternoon snack. I had one just yesterday when I was out mowing the lawn. They come 4 to a box, and because Nancy likes these Magic Spoon treats too, well, the double chocolate flavored ones disappear pretty quickly around here. Anyway, if that sounds like something you'd like to try, head on over to magicspoon.com/DisneyDish to grab a custom bundle of cereal and try the magic for yourself. And don't forget to add their tasty treats to your order. And be sure to use our promo code DisneyDish at checkout to save $5 off. Mind you, Magic Spoon is so confident in their product, it's backed by a 100% happiness guarantee, which means if you don't like it for any reason, they'll refund your money, no questions asked. Remember, get your next delicious bowl of high-protein cereal at magicspoon.com/DisneyDish and use the code DisneyDish to save $5 off. We thank them for sponsoring today's episode. Walt Disney once said that for every laugh there should be a tear, which is why, I think anyway, he would have loved Drawn to Life, that hugely entertaining, surprising, and emotional spectacle that's now being presented live on stage at Disney Springs in Lake Buena Vista, Florida. Presented by Cirque du Soleil and Disney, this is a show that I can guarantee you will captivate audiences of all ages. I saw this show during a recent trip to Walt Disney World, and let me tell you, I'm ready to go see it again right now. Drawn to Life is filled with breathtaking acrobatics, stunning visuals, and heartwarming storytelling. The creative geniuses behind Cirque du Soleil and Walt Disney Animation Studios have come together to create this show where imagination literally knows no bounds. Filled with dazzling performances, not to mention beloved Disney characters coming to life in ways you've only just dreamed about, Drawn to Life is a must-see, family-friendly spectacle that will leave you, well, in awe. So don't miss out on your chance to be part of the magic. Plan your visit to Disney Springs today and reserve your seats for Drawn to Life by Cirque du Soleil and Disney, live on stage. Set your imagination in motion.
And we're back. All right, Jim, we left off last week where Jack Rather had a golf complex built next to the Disneyland Hotel. It was a hit, but for various reasons, it got closed for Disneyland expansion. But then in the early 80s, Michael Eisner comes in, and the Imagineers are looking for ideas to help keep people on property and say, you know, Disneyland used to have a miniature golf course.
It did. Now, where this gets interesting, though, is this is all about Michael keeping people on property. You know, the notion of, I don't like people leaving Disney World and taking their money elsewhere. And in this specific situation, it was concerned about the miniature golf courses that were out at the edge of Disney property. You had like the Mighty Jungle golf course out on Oral Bronson, likewise the Congo River mini golf down on I Drive, and in fact, people sometimes forget there's two. I mean, there was the Pirate Cove Adventure Golf also on I Drive.
And wasn't there something at Crossroads as well?
There was,
right
and
there, right by Disney Village. Okay.
There we go. Right. You know, I mean, so again, this was something that guests, were making part of their Central Florida vacation experience. And Eisner wanted that on property. So the Imagineers went off and developed ideas. And the first idea was a Roger Rabbit themed course, which was supposed to key off of the characters and the settings from that Academy Award-winning Touchstone movie from the summer of '88. And Eisner was initially very enthusiastic about this, but as the late 80s give way to the early 90s, Disney and Spielberg, who, you got to remember, Steven helped make Who Framed Roger Rabbit a reality because he called in favors at all of the studios like Warner's where he'd previously worked. So, that's how Bugs Bunny ended up doing a scene with Mickey Mouse, and that's how Daffy Duck and Donald did the dueling piano bit. But they had a falling out. And as a direct result, the very last Roger Rabbit project that moved forward was the Tokyo Disneyland version of Cartoon Spin that opens in April of '96. So, okay, Imagineers pivot to another idea, and this time around it's an Alice in Wonderland themed miniature golf course based on the Disney film from July of '51. But Eisner was like, well, that movie is over 40 years old. Is there a newer IP we could do this on? And what's especially interesting is the Imagineers who actually went to the Disneyland Hotel and played the miniature golf course there. They were the ones pushing for the storybook land version of Disney World's miniature golf course. And Len, you would have loved this. Remember, out in California, what Jack Rather did with the help of the Imagineers was create 18 holes of miniature golf challenges that were themed around really well-known Disneyland attractions. So the Matterhorn and the Moonliner and the Seven Dwarfs Mine. And so picture this, what the Imagineers wanted, and again, these are the Imagineers of the 90s, what they wanted to do was that every single hole in this golf course would be a Walt Disney World icon. So, you'd have Cinderella Castle, Spaceship Earth, Chinese Theater, the Contemporary Hotel. And the weirdest part of the story, Len, Eisner went for it, but then went, whoa. Yeah, he's like, whoa. I want us to include Animal Kingdom, because they're in the middle of designing it. He says, I think people are really going to want the Tree of Life. So we need this sooner than later. So let's hold this idea to maybe do later. So now the Imagineers are like, crud, we got to come up with something. And what eventually happens is they select an 11-acre site off of Lake Buena Vista Drive that is next door to the Dolphin and the Swan and its convention complex. And the thinking was that people who are conventioneering on Disney property, were attending events and that sort of thing, this will be potentially something that they want to go to. So it has to be classy. So that's why Eisner's like, well, what we did, the only thing that comes to mind when I think of Disney and classy is Fantasia, which...
I mean, not for nothing. It's a great movie. Okay.
Well, yeah, sort of. But again, released to theaters in November of 1940. And, the Imagineers, no, wait a minute. You told us we couldn't do Alice in Wonderland because it was 40 years old. And now you're
but Alice is old, but Fantasia is timeless, Jim.
There, thank you. They get out of jail free card. But it's like, okay, you don't question the boss, all right? Sure, we'll go with the 50-year-old film. Absolutely. But even then, you set the project in motion. It's like, first and foremost, I don't think we should do a Chernobog, a night on Bald Mountain Hole. We'll frighten the children. So it's like, okay, that's off the table. Also, the Rites of Spring sequence with the dinosaurs. And it's like, that'll be kind of out of scale with everything else. And the Imagineers are, come on, have you actually ever been to a miniature golf course? They have dinosaurs. In fact, some of the most popular ones are dinosaur themed.
I love the idea of having a Chernobog because you could have a hole where Chernobog just swats your ball away from the little hole you're supposed to be, imagine Chernobog sitting on a mountain with a tunnel in the middle of the mountain, and he just swipes away the ball as you hit it. Like these things design themselves, Jim.
Well, no, it's so funny you say that because I got to talk with the lead designer on this thing at one point, and he mentioned that you remember how Chernobog opens his wings in the movie and reveals himself. That was the idea. The thought you would hit the ball and he closes his wings.
Yeah, no, I mean there's so much you can do with this, right?
Yeah. All right. So anyway, they do a cartoony and whimsical side, which keys off of Sorcerer's Apprentice, Staccato and Fugue, Pastoral Symphony, Dance of the Hours, and Nutcracker Suite. But also the concern at Imagineering is, it's not just going to be families. It's going to be people who've spent the day inside of that convention center. These are grown-up adults who, they're not going to want to, be trying to shoot a ball into the mouth of an alligator with a hippo on his back. They're going to want something a little challenging. So they come up with a companion to the 18-hole miniature golf course. They come up with the Fantasia Fairway, this is a miniaturized 18-hole golf course with par 3 and par 5 holes. And it's designed to challenge skilled golfers. It's got sand traps, it's got bunkers, it's got water.
It has real sand traps, it has real bunkers, it has real, I think I said this on the show. I played this in its original form, and I gave up after 105 strokes. I did not finish 18 holes.
Well, now, to make yourself feel better, Len, October of 1999, after he'd won that year's National Car Rental Golf Classic, Tiger Woods was invited to come play a round on Fantasia Fairways. And after he finished, he was quoted as saying, Fantasia Fairway is one of the hardest golf courses I have ever played. All right.
No, it was extremely difficult. And especially if you didn't know what you were getting yourself into, you didn't mentally prepare for it. Yeah.
You've nailed it in one, because this is the thing.
Actually, I didn't, Jim. It took like 6 or 7 for most things, but okay.
But no, that's the thing. You had families that played in an enjoyable round over at Fantasia Gardens, and
they're like, oh, this is wonderful. Yeah.
Let's go over to the next course, and little kids breaking down into tears because they can't get the ball into the hole. So initially, Len, this was not an issue that Disney was willing to acknowledge, because Fantasia Garden and Fantasia Fairway, when they open, and in fact, it was 28 years ago this week, May 20th, 1996, the course was originally designed to accommodate 400 to 500 rounds of golf per day. It was so popular, they wound up handling 800 to 900 rounds of golf per day. They would open at 10 a.m. and stay open straight through till 11 o'clock at night.
And there was a crowd there. We actually had to wait for our tee time when we were there last week, too. So, yeah, about half an hour, yeah.
Wow. Okay, so obviously demand was there for an additional miniature golf course. And what's interesting is it was only 6 months later that Disney greenlit design. Late in 1996. And now, mind you, already they had the after-action surveys that said that guests were extremely frustrated with Fantasia Fairways. So whatever course they built next, both sides of it, and again, they were going to do the same thing again, 2 18-hole golf courses. They had to be kid-friendly, and they had to be playable by guests with minimal golf skills. And the year previous, Blizzard Beach had opened along Buena Vista Drive, April of 1995, had an enormous parking lot, Len, with plenty of room in the immediate area to expand upon. And more to the point, this 60-acre water park had a fun theme. A surprise snowstorm blankets this corner of Florida with wet stuff, cold white wet stuff. And the Imagineers took that core concept and noodled on it. They wondered, what would Santa do if he just finished his annual run of delivering Christmas toys to all the good little boys and girls of the year, the world, and he flies over Blizzard Beach and he sees snow. He'd stop to investigate, right?
Sure, absolutely.
And so Santa, upon seeing this magical spot, which combines the heat of Florida and the cold of the North Pole, decides perfect spot for he and Mrs. Claus to set up a vacation home, which leads to the creation of Winter Summerland, which opens in March of 1999. Now, to say that this project was fast-tracked, Len, is, the theme was selected in January of 1998. It opens to the public 14 months later. Full of great little witty touches. I love, for example, how the Gulfstream trailers there are actually Elfstream trailers.
Elfstreams, yeah.
Or once you win the game, Santa sends you a congratulatory email, only it's not on the internet, it's on the Winternet.
I've played this a bunch of times, and I like Winter Summerland quite a bit. The other thing I like, too, is occasionally in the summer, they'll pipe out air conditioning on the holes to make it feel cold.
Oh, yeah.
While you're there. And I'm telling you, man, during summer, especially it's going to be 99 this week in Orlando. That is really appreciated. So,
well, what's also interesting is it's in this window of time, you will see families show up, dressed really well, who will buy admission to Winter Summerland and to basically march through the course looking for the background of their family Christmas card. And it's just
I didn't think of this. Oh my God, that's a great idea.
But that's it. I've got friends who every year send me. It's now coming up on 10 years of the kids sweating in their Christmas sweaters, standing, on the winter side of Winter Summerland.
Do you have the flu here? You're flushed and sweating.
There we go.
Now we're in Florida in July. It's fine.
It's a lovely photo. But anyway, again, this, just want to stress here, the lessons learned from Fantasia Fairway, every aspect of this, the winter side and the summer side are deliberately kid-friendly, easy for even the youngest members of the family to play, which is why this of all the golf courses, miniature golf courses on Disney property is most popular. In fact, so popular, Len, that when Blizzard Beach goes down for its months-long annual rehab, I mean, you know the drill from touring plans. When it goes down for months. But Winter Summerland remains open. In fact, dedicated buses leave from, various resorts on property and run people over to play at this course, which stays open from 10 a.m. to 10 p.m.
It's really the draw on that side of the property.
All right, so just to double back to you at Fantasia Garden, were there any holes there you found especially challenging, or?
Yeah, there's a couple. There's a couple that involve you putting the ball up a hill, and the hill is curved, and the curve is almost like a hairpin. So the idea is you have to make sure you put either spin on the ball or you angle it exactly right to make it to the other side of the curve, because if you don't, it either falls back down and you have to hit it again, or it falls back down into sort of like a capture tube, and the capture tube kicks the ball out to a disadvantaged place on the green near the hole. And those are really, really hard to do. Like there's one with Bacchus, I think, and the curve is so tight and so narrow at the top. Like I think I tried the stroke limit is 5 on the holes, but there's no one behind me, so I think I took like 7 swings at this one and just couldn't get it to happen.
Okay, I will try to get you a handwritten note from Joe Len Cicero about this, because it turns out when they were constructing Fantasia Gardens, somebody misread the blueprint for Bacchus, and he's actually
really?
He's 3 feet taller than he's supposed to be.
Oh my God, that explains everything.
Yeah,
it is so steep.
Again, it's just the whole notion of wow, that's now kind of an impossible hole, and it's like
because you have to hit it so hard to get up the hill that as soon as it hits the first little piece of concrete barrier, it starts bouncing everywhere, and then it's like it's in God's hands at that point. And every time I tried it, the ball just fell back down after bouncing around.
One final note here, folks who are going to recall last week's show where we were talking about the Magic Kingdom golf course at Disneyland Hotel. Remember that ended with a statue of a Mickey Mouse holding a putter aloft. And again, the Imagineers who'd played at that course as kids, it's like, well, we got to do the same thing with Fantasia Gardens. So that's why this course ends with a statue of Mickey Mouse, only he's, the Sorcerer's Apprentice. But
And I will say this too, it's the hole where as long as you hit the ball, you're guaranteed a hole in one. So it's a nice way to, and then at the end, because Mickey is Sorcerer's Apprentice, when the ball goes in the hole, a little spray of water comes out around the hole to mimic the Sorcerer's Apprentice scene. Yeah, really well done.
They worked hard to make this satisfying, that aspect of this pair of courses. By the way, just a final note here, folks. If you can't get to Orlando to check out Fantasia Garden or Winter Summerland, not to worry. There's a traveling Pixar-themed miniature golf course currently touring the U.S. In fact, Pixar Putt Mini Golf opens, this show's going live on Schmurz Day, the 27th. This past weekend, Pixar Putt Mini Golf opened in Washington, D.C., and it will be entertaining folks on the terrace at the wharf, which is located at 580 Water Street Southwest, through August 3rd of this year. And it's 18 holes themed around classic Pixar properties like Toy Story, Monsters, Inc., and Cars, as well as newer films from that animation studio, Len. Luca, Turning Red, and Onward. And if you want to learn more about that particular miniature golf course, please check them out at PixarPutt, that's 2Ts.com.
Oh, that is fantastic. All right, Jim, let me ask you this one question before we go. Mm-hmm. I mean, obviously, miniature golf has its fans, and it's reasonably priced and something to do on days when you aren't going to the parks. Another thing that you do when you don't go to the parks is you go to Disney Springs. And I'm going to note that City Walk has its own miniature golf course attached to it. Why doesn't Disney Springs have mini golf, Jim?
Remember, Mr. Eisner said we have to hold off on that Storybook Land version until Animal Kingdom opens. And sadly, we got on the other side of Michael being the visionary to Michael being the cautionary CEO. And that idea was supposedly considered very seriously for, well, again, this was downtown Disney back in the day. In fact, my understanding is the plan was to actually put the course on the other side of the Cirque du Soleil to drive people even deeper onto the west side. But again, by then, Michael was spending more of his time tapping the brakes than he was, green lighting things. So, somewhere there's a draw full of miniature golf course that's filled with Disney World icons. And the upside of it is that, you didn't have a cast member who had to walk around the course and say, please stop sitting on the Contemporary Hotel.
Exactly. Well, they put lightning rods on it.
There we go.
I would love to see something like, because, as you were talking about this, I'm like, okay, what would each hole look like themed to classic attractions? And I'm thinking Kilimanjaro Safaris, you could have the elephant's ears just waving balls away from the hole. I mean, we should do this. Anyway, great story, though. All right, folks, that's going to do it for the show today. You can help support our show by subscribing over at patreon.com/JimHillMedia, where we're posting exclusive shows every week. Our most recent show answers your questions about Disney's stunt shows. Check it out at patreon.com/JimHillMedia. You can find more of Jim at JimHillMedia.com and more of me, Len, at TouringPlans.com. On next week's show, we're going to talk about the air launch system for Disney's pyrotechnics shows. We're produced spectacularly by Eric Hersey, who'll be covering The Snap Beans Ain't Salty and other classics on Thursday's Zydeco night for the 2024 WC Handy Blues and Barbecue Festival, running Wednesday, June 12th through Saturday, June 15th at the Audubon Mill Park in beautiful downtown Henderson, Kentucky. While Eric's doing that, please go into iTunes and rate our show and tell us what you'd like to hear next. All right, last thing before we go, it's Memorial Day in the United States, and we want to recognize that for the show. I'm not sure that saying Happy Memorial Day is the right sentiment for Memorial Day, so I'm going to read the part of the review I wrote on Arlington National Cemetery for the Unofficial Guide to Washington, D.C. It says this: Arlington National Cemetery is the final resting place for more than 400,000 Americans, the vast majority from the country's military branches. In addition, it is home to memorials to civilians whose actions or sacrifice also bring honor to the United States in combat or other service. Its 624 acres of gravestones, tombs, mausoleums, and monuments are a visual reminder of the human cost of America's place in the world. For Jim, this is Len. We will see you on the next show.